Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Sharp Objects, Episode 1, and this one's titled Vanish. Now, Sharp Objects is an adaptation of a book of the same name by Gillian Flynn of Gone Girl fame, and just so we're all up front on the same page, I have not read the book. I know many of the viewers of the show have not read the book. If you have read the book, great, that's wonderful. We would appreciate it if you didn't try to spoil anything in the comments. That would be cool. And I haven't seen anybody being a jerk like that on the forums and stuff that I've looked at, so I think we're probably cool, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. And this was a show that I went into not knowing much other than sort of what I saw in the teasers during Westworld. And I knew it was going to be probably a drama, right? I knew that there was probably going to be some crime, but I wasn't exactly sure what kind of story this was going to be. And it's interesting, in the very opening credits, they are already telling you a lot about what kind of show this is, because there's a lot of showing this sort of cutesy old town, and yet there's just the faintest glimmers of darkness under the surface of, the welcome to Wind Gap sign, but then there's graffiti on it and sort of the people kind of looking out of their eyes, and there's out of the side of their eyes. And there's also imagery within the trailer of circularity, circular things going around in a circle, right? There's the record player, which we see later on in Camille's stepfather's study. There's a girl spinning around in circles. And to me, this is not just stuff that we're going to see in the show. They're really planting the idea right up front that this is kind of a place that you can't escape from. At least Camille can't escape from it. She's sort of bound by fate to constantly circle back and around, and she can never get away from the past. And to put just a nail right in that coffin right off the start, in addition to the opening credits and kind of the stuff they imply, we open up with this thing that turns out to be a dream sequence / memory of Camille and her sister Miriam riding around their bikes around town, going to find this old house. Now, I assume that this is at least partially memory, and some of this is going to get explained later, but in the context of what we see right here, it's just them sneaking into this house. It seems like, I did not go back and rewatch this, but they're sneaking past some people in the house as if it's their house. But I assume what's happening is that they're sneaking back in, and their mom doesn't know, except the house is weird and it's all overgrown in the initial scene. It's a dream sequence, so maybe we shouldn't read too much into it. But they go up to this person sleeping on the bed, Amy Adams, and go to poke a... I don't know why they're doing this, but they go to poke a paperclip under her fingernail, and then she wakes up because it's a dream. I assume we'll get kind of more of sort of the nitty gritty of what all that means as far as where the paperclip comes in and who that person in the bed actually would have been. But the basic idea we can get here is that this is someone who is not able to escape her past, right? She's not in that house. And I love the way they shot this too. The fact that they go up the stairs in the house. I don't think it's a one shot, but you get the sense that this is all of a piece. They're going up the stairs. They see the bedroom where she's staying. And she wakes up in the bedroom that they're in, but it's not in that house. Just beautifully constructed dream logic here. And I thought that was really great. It felt like the kind of thing that could happen in a dream where things didn't quite make sense, but you sort of could tell somebody, well, I was doing this and then I saw myself, and and yet also really speaking a lot to the character, really putting us in the same frame that she's in, where even though she's moved away, she still can't get away, right? In her mind, she's still there. She's still stuck there, and there's basically this really blurred line between here and there, and it's always pulling her back. And if that wasn't bad enough, the thing that wakes her up, speaking of pulling her back, is a phone call from her editor, right? Because as we find out, Amy Adams is Camille, grown up. One of the short-haired girl from the past is Camille in the past, and here's Camille in the future, and she's getting a phone call from her editor, and her editor is going to send her back to Wind Gap. And as if, by the way, all of the imagery we got wasn't enough, like on her return trip to Wind Gap, she starts playing songs, and one of them is Baby I Can't Quit You or something. They're really a lot of on-the-nose song choices in this, and I enjoy that. There's a certain amount of this show that really reminds me, at least in this first episode, of Legion. Not in the same way that we're going to see literal supernatural elements, I don't think. All right, again, I don't want any spoilers, but right now this seems very grounded in real things and real people and real scars that these people have to work through. And yet, they're using these visual elements to signify the interior of the protagonist's head, right? This is not first person, but if you were writing this story, it would probably be in first person, I assume. I haven't read it, but the way that they're inside of what Camille is seeing is very much a subjective thing. She's constantly flitting in and out of memories as if she was there, seeing things that are happening as if they were happening in the present day, and then herself being in the past as she can't escape this, right? She's constantly cycling through, possibly because of her like severe alcoholism, okay? Which is something we can talk about right here, because she drinks the whole way to Wind Gap. Her editor sends her there. She gets in the car. It's a crappy car. There's some great storytelling going on with just the visuals, where they don't say, she doesn't look at anybody in the face and say, I used to be rich, but I chose the life of poverty so that I could get away from my overbearing mother. That's not in there, all right? It's all just like straight up visual storytelling of she drives this crappy Volvo with her shattered phone screen and all of these things, you know, like she's wearing sweatpants or something. Like she's not in a flattering outfit in this first episode, like at all. And yet she drives home and her mom lives in a mansion. I mean, mansion's probably a little bit of an overstatement. Okay. I'm sure some people, there's many houses that are larger than this, but it's a nice house. These people are not hurting. And she probably could have taken advantage of that and clearly has chosen not to. And clearly, in addition to that, has chosen to become a raging alcoholic. Drives all this way. She starts relatively early in the day, we assume, right? She talks to her editor. We don't get like an exact of like what time did she leave, but it's nighttime by the time she gets there. So it's at least several hours, if not an entire day's drive, to get back to Wind Gap, and she's drinking the whole way. I know for a fact because she stops in the hotel room and takes inventory of her little bottles of vodka, which was just, that moment in particular was just such a great touch of, again, visual storytelling. She doesn't have to look at anybody and say, I'm an alcoholic, and not that she would do that anyway, right? But she's probably not in denial. I think she's so far into it she can't be in denial, but she's not going to tell anybody, as we'll see later on. Nobody wants to hear any bad things in this town. And she finally gets there, and she talks to the sheriff. And the sheriff is very reticent to say anything about the case. Now, my read of this scene was similar to her read when she calls her editor, in that he's not hiding something. He just is very worried about the image of the town. That's his first thing that he says is, you're going to turn us into some kind of monsters. You're going to make us look bad. And this is a seed that's planted as a theme for a lot of stuff that's going to be coming from her mother, right? Her mother's prime concern, as we will find out later, is saving face. Like, above all else, above the safety of her children, above the well-being of the town. She's not nearly as worried about the girls being missing as she is about Camille writing this story and telling people that the town isn't perfect and idyllic and wonderful. And that's the attitude that's pervasive in this town of just keep your mouth shut and pretend everything's okay, and maybe it will be. And there's a certain amount of like, in my own life, there's only so much that I can take of bad news. I've unsubscribed to certain things on the internet just because I was like, you know what? I get there's bad stuff happening in the rest of the world, but I can't do anything about it, and I can't take it every day as just a steady drip of a dose of a thing. I'm going to deal with the problems that I have in front of me and help the people that I know how to help. So that's like an understandable human reaction, but these people in this town are taking it quite a bit farther. And in the process of this, we also get more flashbacks to Camille as a girl. She goes bathing in a pond with, I think she's alone. I can't remember if the memory was weird or if her sister was there, but at some point, these boys run by. One boy points a gun at her and then like moves on and laughs. And it's such a small moment. Like, this episode is not necessarily what I would call plot heavy. Okay, there's not a lot of stuff happening, but it's building up this feeling, right? This sort of fabric of this town, and the fact that this is the kind of place where you could just have a gun pointed at you casually, not like somebody threatening you, or maybe, like in a sense, like it's a subtle threat, like the guy's just enjoying the power that he has, but he's not trying to get anything from her. He's not taking her lunch money. He doesn't want her to do anything. He's just, I have a gun and I can point it at you and you can't do anything about it. It's that kind of town. And again, it's great storytelling. It's great fabric stuff, just building up what kind of place this is. In the flashback, Camille then moves on to find this shack full of, well, not full of, but with porn pasted on the walls. And you get the sense that this is like her sexual awakening, like the first time that she kind of learns about sex, because the way it's cut together is between her as a girl seeing all these explicit photos to her as an adult masturbating in bed. And I think the implication here is, although again, you can take it however you want to, that she has like not been exposed to this kind of thing before this moment. This is really where she sort of understands what sex is and what it means. And maybe this is part of the reason she's messed up. Although, I don't know, the photos that we saw weren't like, it was just, it didn't seem terribly like off the wall weird stuff to me in the little bits that we got of it. She goes and, tries to figure out what's going on. She meets with people from other, elsewhere in the town. There's a woman from her past who she has a conversation with. I assume this woman will come back into it, but really all we found out now is that she's providing drinks to the searchers. She goes looking for answers at the bar, as she would. Now, this is after she's gone home. And as I mentioned, Camille's mother immediately expresses a desire for this story not to be made gross and weird. Everybody from this town that she talks to is like, don't make us look bad. Even the dad of the girl who gets kidnapped. So she goes home and, meets up with mom, doesn't tell her she's coming. Her mom's basically cool with it, She says, all right, well, we'll get your room ready. I wish you would have called. And maybe there's a little bit of uneasiness there because I'm sure this family has some baggage. But she, welcomes her back in like you kind of would expect a mom to. And they, then she's like, I can't stay here. She gets into the room and she just can't deal with being in this room. And so she runs to the only safe place that she has, which is a bottle, under the guise of maybe trying to get some answers from sort of the locals. There is actually the brother of the girl who's disappeared there, and she's gonna talk to him, but she gets headed off at the pass by the FBI agent who's in town from out of town. They have a whole discussion about, outsiders and stuff. And again, it's more fabric building. But really the upshot of this scene is she gets blackout drunk. She just drinks, goes out into her car and just wakes up like the next morning. And I love the editing, by the way. I love the editing in all of this episode, but this moment in particular was very much just boom. Like you have a cut from she's taking a drink to next morning. It's not even, they don't even do that sound effect, right? It's so jarring and beautiful. Like you're with her in that sense of, how did I get here? What happened? What was last night? Trying to put it all together. And she goes and gets her car jumped. And this is the moment, as I mentioned earlier, where you really understand what her mother's priorities are, because she finally gets home and her mother says to her, where were you? What were you doing? Did anybody see you? And this is the concern that her mother has. Now, I have a hard time believing that her mother actually doesn't know, because this town knew that she was there almost immediately. Now, maybe her mother's a little bit isolated because she hadn't found out, but the gossip had traveled around pretty quick, and her mother seems to be pretty plugged into some things. She does lie. She tells her mother, nobody saw me, when in fact she had to ask for help for a jump. But the thing that struck me here was that her mother's far less concerned with the fact that she went out and got blackout drunk. Of course, she doesn't admit that, but I think her mother probably suspects. She's not concerned about her safety for sleeping in the car. She's not, it's none of that. She just doesn't want to look bad. Her number one goal in life is, don't make me look bad to these people in this town, because I have to live here. I don't care that you have no memory of last night and that you slept in your car, except for the fact that sleeping in your car looks bad, so don't do it. That's the kind of family that she's growing up in. And throughout the episode, we get hints about this other girl, the sister of Camille, that something went wrong with her. Now, Camille is here investigating a disappearance, and they do eventually find the body of the girl who disappeared, and she's, in her dealing with the fact that she was there when they found the body, she starts having flashbacks to when her sister was alive and what her sister's funeral was like. And there's this, obviously she's dead. We know for a fact that Miriam has died. What we don't know is how. There is a moment as they're laying in bed when Miriam has a seizure, and, Camille freaks out and goes and runs to tell their mom, and then we see her in a coffin. We don't know if that's why it happened or if it's just something that, that she had to deal with. But it probably is tied in. It feels like we're sort of weaving together some kind of mystery here. I mean, there's mystery of what Camille's past was. There's definitely a mystery of who's doing the killing now. There's the fact that these killings are not sexual, right? We know for a fact in Camille's interview of the missing girl from before daughter, because there's two missing girls in the present time. There's Anne, and I forget what the one who gets found in this episode is, but he talks about the fact that she was not raped. And the detective that talks to Camille later says he thinks it's about a power thing, that it's not some kind of sexual thrill that the guy is looking for, or girl, possibly, although that's realistically speaking much less likely. That it wasn't something like you would expect a typical serial killer to be going for. And you can understand how a lot of people in this town might feel powerless. So that doesn't really narrow down the field that much for me. But I just really thought that this was a beautifully constructed episode. As I mentioned, very light on plot, but beautifully layered with story within the visuals, it's helping you understand what's going on with Miriam to an extent, at least how messed up she is. Okay. I don't think this is going to be very many jokes in this, guys. I don't expect this to have like any comedy in the next few episodes going forward. And sometimes it's okay to be a little bit miserable. But I'm looking forward to finding out what's going on. And there's the final mystery of the words appearing in Camille's arm as she's taking this bath, right? She gets in the bath and puts on her music, and we see this word vanish carved into her arm, which we had not seen before. Now, I don't know if we've seen her arm before in the episode. I think, if I recall correctly, she's wearing long sleeves for the whole thing, so she's probably has had this. I don't think it appears, although my brain is now making me question whether it was like something that popped out of her skin, like with a special effect or not. But regardless of whether these scars exist literally or not, they are very clearly telling us, the viewer, that Camille has been scarred by her past, that she still bears whatever happened to her in this town in her body and in her soul. And I assume that this whole series is going to be her trying to confront that and deal with that. There's an interesting little tidbit that I didn't dig into before, where she's calling her editor and reporting to him, and the editor's wife or assistant or whoever's there with him talks to him about what he's doing with her and says, listen, you aren't a doctor. Like, what you're trying here might not work. And I don't know what he's trying. I don't know what his plan is or what he knows about her or how this is all going to play out, but I'm really interested to find out. I hope you guys are too. I intend to recap all the episodes in this series. I don't think it's going to be very long, so that should not be an incredible time commitment for me. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, obviously would love for you to subscribe, hit that like button, and tune in next week for more of the Human Echoes Sharp Objects recap. Take care, y'all. Hey guys, Albert here. Thanks for checking out our video. If you like the videos that we make, you should check us out over on patreon.com, where you can help support the stuff that we do. Consider clicking that little P and becoming a patron. Thank you.